Hey, it's future Greg. Um, things have been kind of crazy this last week or so. This episode is a little late, so it's been because the kids have been sick. I'm kind of sick. The wife has been sick, and opposed to making you guys wait to get this uploaded, I'm gonna give it to you as is with minimal cuts, and hopefully you guys enjoy it because the content is still great. Sorry for being late, but I'm a dad in the dad pad, and things happen. So there you go. But without further ado, please enjoy the show. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Breaks, the show for Blerd Lines Media, where we break down a new episode of The Last of Us each and every week until the show's over, and then we will probably do something else. You know who I am. It is Greg, aka DadPad Gaming, putting it down for the Blerd Lines Media team, and of course today with me as well, I've got my light-skinned friend, Demi God Sean. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. You know, I appreciate you being here. You are the first reoccurring guest of the show, so you know, it just turns out that for some reason we land on these emotional episodes, and here we are again. So definitely, you guys can check out Demi God Sean at twitch.tv/Demi God Sean. And then, of course, you can always catch him on Blerd Lines Media. He's streaming here. He's potting here. He's all over the place. We can't get rid of him. He just pulled up one day and just kind of stuck around. So there's that.
Roach.
Like a roach. I mean, you can get rid of one roach.
Can you?
One, yes. Multiple, no. Like once, if you see one roach,
do they really die?
It's like you kill the one roach, you're okay. But if you kill that one roach and then the next day you see 2 or 3 of them, it's over. There's a million of them. It's done.
There's a million.
You've already lost the war.
Yeah.
All right. So, with that being said, you already know how the rules work here for the breaks go. But just to kind of retread water on the way that things go, we try to be respectful for anyone who has not played the game. So with that being said, we will speak on any thoughts, anything that has happened for The Last of Us HBO show up until episode 6. Anything beyond that point, we can lead into some light foreshadowing, but we don't want to give away anything too heavy. And of course, up to episode 6, all spoilers are guns a-blazing. So with that being said, we'll give our play-by-play as we kind of go through the episode. Of course, poke me, raise your hand, yell, rudely interrupt me whenever you find one of those points to be interesting about the key points in this episode. Just chime in, we'll expand, we'll discuss them as usual, and we will wrap up the show with, of course, the official Blerd Lines Media rating scale, and then also with a light prediction of will it or won't it stick to the source material of the game leading episode. So with that being said, Mr. Demigod Sean, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. So before we get started, I do want to say one thing. We may insert clips into this show. Okay? We may.
Okay.
I just want to let it be known that Blerd Lines Media does not own the rights or reserve the rights to any of The Last of Us material. Those rights are reserved for HBO, Sony PlayStation, and Sony Pictures, and anybody else who's tied to it. We don't own it. Those guys make the game. Those guys make the movies. It's their property. We're using it because we love it.
Yep.
With that being said, don't copyright claim us. Don't strike us, okay? We're just small YouTubers doing small YouTuber things, okay? We're not in your pockets, I promise you. If anything, we are in your pockets because between the two of us, we've bought The Last of Us, what, at least 4 times?
Yeah.
At least? I know I've bought it 3 times. I bought PS3, PS4, PS5. So,
yep.
Yeah, so there we go.
PS4 and I'm buying the PS5 remastered, but I just bought Last of Us Part 2 as well. So
Yeah,
I'm in your pocket twice.
Yeah, and I bought that one, and I paid for the DLC for the original PS3
Oh
left
yeah,
behind. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like trust me, you've
Like, we're
taken
supporters.
right. You've taken more money from us than we've taken from you. I promise you,
I
Sony
promise
and
that.
HBO. Oh man,
I promise that, because
but
I do still have a subscription to HBO.
right, I'm not couch surfing on someone else's profile. Yeah, I'm looking at you, mom. Anyway, let's go ahead and get going. So with that being stated, we start this episode in an interesting way, kinda. We started actually towards the end of where last week's episode ended, with the end of Henry and Sam. The interesting thing about this is when we got Sam and Henry's ending in the original episode, we got the additional tidbits of them kind of like working through it. There was the burial, then they left after a brief conversation. But when they rehashed it here, it was actually very similar to the game. The only difference is after he cuts to black, the game says winter, and we enter into winter or fall next. I forget which one. Whereas here we got a 3 months later screen. But anyway, we get a little bit of landscaping, not much going on.
Definitely get some growth with those scenes.
Oh yeah,
showing another dimension of Joel coming into his surrogate fatherhood.
Yeah.
And we get another dimension of Ellie too. I mean, she was sorry in the game. That I can't remember his name.
Sam.
That Sam died. And then he got infected and all that. But to see her, have the burial scene and basically Joel trying to display to her that, grief is kind of a part of life. Instead of leaving the bodies there like he's done in the past, like he did with the federal officer that he killed, punching him to death. They just left his body there.
Gang.
Instead, they actually bury these two, and I don't think it was necessarily because they quote unquote knew them. I think Joel was really trying to teach her, and Joel is also, again, leveling up into another dimension himself.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll kind of lead into a little bit of that as we kind of get into the next few key points here, because that honestly is the overarching theme of the story, where before there was a camaraderie, we can tell at this point it's evolving into a form of love. Where if it was deniable before, this episode, it becomes very undeniable. And a lot of the points in which we talk about during episode 6 here will definitely kind of touch bases on that. But anyway, so they kind of, mob about just a little bit. We kind of get some looks into winter. Nothing too important going on here. But what turns up happening is we get this random hunter guy. He's coming back. He's got a couple rabbits, hangs the rabbits on the door. He comes home. What do we find? But his wife. Why is that important? Because Joel is holding his wife at gunpoint. She's super chill, super calm. She's just like, I mean, it's cool. He hasn't hurt me. We're here, chilling out. Yeah. He just got some questions. She's like, besides, he has a girl with him. And the husband's kind of confused, like, wait, what? Like, this guy is in the house, he's got you at gunpoint, you made him soup? Like, what's going on here?
Right.
So
I am totally confused right now.
Right. Which was funny. Again, I find it really interesting that somehow these guys continue to like pile in and pack in humor into these episodes somehow. Like as dark as the show is, like there's a fair amount of humor here. But anyway, they have the conversation about what's going on, where they are. This couple tells them about this I think they referred to it as like the River of Death. Where there is a group or a settlement that is killing people, and and they're like, hey, you need to stay clear of that because shit ain't sweet. And if you go that way, it might end up bad for you. But you can follow these directions to get where you need to go. So, of course, with a peaceful departure, because Joel, as much as Joel drums up that he is the bad guy, and in some ways he is, we can definitely see him softening up because last episode before he killed the old guy, he begged, like, come on, don't make me do this.
And
And
you know, it's really crazy when dude came into the home. When we actually start that scene, it's a mirror scene of the game when Ellie is killing that first rabbit. She's actually going on her like first hunt by herself, and
oh
she kills that rabbit with the arrow. That is a mirror scene because it's in the same space, right, of the timeline of the game. But it is a mirror scene of Ellie killing that rabbit. So the old man kills the rabbit instead, brings it into the home, and the interrogation scene is also a mirror scene of the game from another portion
yeah,
that we would have hit earlier prior to them actually reaching the dam, where Joel is interrogating two men, and he basically says the same thing to the man in the show that he said to him in the game. You know, point to me where we are on this map, and it better be the same place that your wife points to.
yeah,
In the game, it was, you know, better be the same place that your friend, you know, tells us to go or what have you.
right,
So very, very interesting changes and key point factors that have been like, I don't know, alternated. It makes me, and I think I said this in the last episode, it makes me feel like this is just a mirror universe, but following the same timeline and direction with just key
yeah,
differences here and there that only, excuse me, only a person who might have played the game would know.
right, right. And
Yeah.
partially, I can't say much because your
Mm-hmm.
timeline
Mm-hmm.
is a little off, but
Okay.
we could talk about that off the air because I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to
Well,
spoil.
so they make it to the
So okay.
dam.
So what I can say is this: Ellie
Okay.
does kill the rabbit, but Ellie kills the rabbit after Joel is injured.
Oh, I see.
Is the way that it goes. So those events do kind of line up in some ways. In some ways they don't. Like I said,
I got you.
we could talk about that off the air because we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
we don't
yeah,
want to
yeah,
spoil
yeah, yeah.
things. Um, but anyway, so to continue on, they leave on a peaceful departure. Nobody's harmed.
Right.
Ellie snatches the rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
And and this is us getting another glimpse at Daddy Joe. So
Right.
old Papa Joe looks at her, is like, "Hey, put those rabbits back." She's like, "You gonna show me how to get some? If not, I'm taking them."
Right.
He kind of
Right.
shrugs it off. She takes the rabbits. No harm, no foul. It's not like these guys are struggling as they're leaving. There's like a whole like deer racked up, ready to be cooked up and served. So they're not
Right.
hurting for the rabbit. They're okay.
Right.
Um, so
It seemed as though she had been shown by Joel either how to gut the how to gut the deer, or what gutting a deer was like. Because this is definitely a bit of obviously a time skip. It's been 3 months, so they have been foraging and things like that. And I think you're right that Daddy Joel definitely kicked in
yeah.
again because she seemed familiar with cutting that deer and kind of gutting it open.
Well, so what it was is because they actually made a line about it in the show.
Hmm.
Um, it was like I want to say it was something along the lines of he said, "Well, hunting it isn't the hard part. I think you're okay with that. It's it's dressing it that's the
Dressing
problem."
it,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and then she says to him, "Well, aren't we kind of undressing it from the inside? So maybe we should call it undressing, right?" And
Right.
which is like hilarious because like that whole moment, and this kind of leads to them leaving from the couple's house. That whole moment was, yes, like a lot of wide shots of them traversing through environments
Mhm,
and kind of having like these small talks and blah blah blah. And there's that air of annoyance that Joel displays in
yeah,
some of these parts. And
yeah.
as a parent, I relate to that because sometimes it's like, all right, sometimes we can do this. Sometimes it's like, all right, little dude, leave me alone.
You know, he's like you could tell I'm not a hunter, right? Because he's like that hunter that is seasoned and super experienced and got that young kid with him, like, cracking jokes about, you know, how the terminologies and things work, and it's like, all right, kid, like leave me alone. Like, all right, I get it, it's funny to you, you know.
Right.
And he again has that type of annoyance, and that I think that their banter just as actors going back and forth is really really akin to Joel and Ellie
Hmm.
in the game. I'm
Yeah.
really loving how their chemistry is. You would think that they had been on this journey for 6 to 8 months already, going across the country, fighting infected, fighting other humans, trying to stay alive, saving each other's lives, and
Right.
then building a relationship off of all these different experiences after first only seeing each other as, you know, cargo and carrier.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And perfect moment to kind of retread, because one thing that happens is they actually leave from the couple's house. They get to the
Hmm.
fence, and Joel has a panic attack.
Yep,
Um,
sure does.
and my theory here is that he realizes that he's feelings. He's
Hmm.
seeing these moments where um Henry and Sam kind of, you know, went the way of the dinosaur. Henry was
Right.
not able to protect Sam, and my theory is he is thinking about those moments because, of course, it would make sense that that is a traumatizing moment, especially for him, a man who's already lost his daughter and chose to live, and him
Right.
thinking about what would happen if he, so to speak, lost his daughter again. Could he
Right.
choose to live a second time? They
Hmm.
did a lot of mirroring Joel and Ellie as a, you know, as a 1-2 duo with Hammond, with Sam and Henry. So
Right.
yeah, so it kind of makes sense that at this point he kind of knows, like, yeah, I'm catching feelings. I love this little girl. I've got to protect her.
Right.
Which kind of leads into, after they kind of go on their expedition and they're moving around, we get to the scene where they build a campfire, uh,
Hmm.
and they rest for the night.
Hmm.
Ellie sees the northern lights. Really beautiful shot, lots of stars. There's not
Right.
really much conversation had here, initially. But when she comes down from the stars, they do have the conversation about how Ellie tried to save Sam. Um,
Right.
and this conversation is kind of interesting because it kind of draws a little bit of doubt, you know, and in the conversation, and can she do it? And Joel actually does a solid job of reassuring her. He's like, hey, you know, I'm sure it doesn't work that way. Right. You
Right.
know, you know, he says Marlene's pretty smart. It's got to be more complicated than just dripping your blood in. Like, we'll get
Right.
there. We'll figure this
Right.
out. Um,
Yeah.
and testament to Joel doing a good job of kind of, you know, perking her up a bit. The next conversation they have is, once Ellie saves the world, what are you gonna do?
Hmm. I
And
think it brings a lot of that kid back into Ellie,
yeah,
because she's had to be an adult, you know, for a majority of this show, and she's had a few kid instances, right? But I think this is one that's really hitting home for her, because it's like, I tried to save another person, right, and it didn't work. I tried to save another person with my blood, like how they say it's, you know, immune, and I should be able to help fight these things that are taking over our world, and it didn't work. I actually ended up it hurting or not saving another kid in the end anyway.
right.
And so when she's asking Joel that, you see a lot of child in her, like, yo, this didn't work.
Yeah,
And I don't know what to do now, like, what's gonna happen? And so Joel again is taking up that daddy Joel, taking up that parenting role, and letting her know, you know, hey, this isn't like just magic, right? This isn't something that we can just do and you know, not have any science behind, or not have any sort of knowledge behind. There's got to be more to your blood than just you know, laying your hands on other people
right,
and them being healed.
right,
So like, don't worry about, you know, trying to spread your blood, right? Just let's get to Marlene, let's figure it out from there. Joel is presenting her with a plan when she's literally at a loss, like, oh my god, I'm a child in this, I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm doing. And when they get to that other point where she's talking about, protecting him, and if I'm skipping ahead, let me know.
No, you're fine.
When they wake up in the cave, right, and Joel has fallen asleep on watch, she kind of has reassured herself at that point, right? And she's like, okay, well, he's asleep, but he's taught me some things. So let me take these things that he's taught me
Hmm?
and put them to use, right? So
Yeah.
that I can learn to protect him the same way that he's trying to protect me, which in caveat shows Joel, damn, I'm human. I can't protect her the way that I want to.
Not all the
Um,
time, at least. Yeah.
right. I have to rest, right? I have to eat. Joe realizes at a pivotal point, I think, in his life, because he just had this conversation about his brother, with the two strangers in the home, right? And they haven't seen him, and they're talking about the river of death and all these different emotions that Joel is already going through, and he falls asleep on watch.
Right. Yeah.
He's at a loss as well. So I think that they're both broken, right? They're both broken individuals that are kind of in a way finding themselves through each other,
Yeah. I agree.
which again pulls back to that dynamic that these two actors are showing, because this happened a lot of ways in the game, and throughout this point up into the game. So the actors being able to display this type of emotion and this type of dynamic between the two characters as well is phenomenal.
Yeah. No
Perfect
doubt.
casting once again.
No doubt. And to kind of add to your idea of them being lost, but also finding themselves within each other.
Mhm.
The perfect examples to that is kind of going back to the conversation they have on the fantasy of what would you do after the world
Mhm.
is saved. What
Right.
Joel says is, quiet, simple. I'm gonna be a sheep farm. I'll go get my chunk of land. I'll be left
Right.
alone. It'll be quiet. I can live a peaceful life. And
Right.
Ellie says that she wants to be an astronaut. And
Mhm.
again, finding themselves within each other. Joel looks at her, looks at the moon, and he goes, huh, sheep farm on the moon. So it was something so little, but at this point, you can already tell that a part of him can imagine living the rest of his life as
Right.
Ellie's father figure. So
Right.
yeah, I agree with that 100%. I do think that, they do find peace in each other. And as this episode gets towards the end, we actually do get one of the iconic moments where she actually admits that. Um,
Mhm.
Another thing that I did want to point out that was kind of cool, when Ellie is taking second watch to let Joel sleep because he's a cranky old man and he needs those naps. He's mumbling, and if you turn on your subtitles, what he's saying is supposed to be me.
Uh-huh.
So that would signify that yes, the panic attacks are probably coming from the fact that now he's facing another daughter and he's already lost one, and he still has the regret from losing Sarah. He feels like he should have died, not him. Because
Right.
after all, which is different from the show, he's actually, which is different from the game, he's actually grazed by that military agent at that point.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, of course, Sarah ends up taking the brunt of the assault.
Right.
Um, but nonetheless, as you said, they kind of had that conversation. She was like, "Yo, you're a sleepy old man," blah blah blah, whatever. They continue on with their adventure, and they come
Mhm.
across the I want to say it was the dam first. They came across the
Right.
dam.
Right.
Shortly after that, they actually come to the river, and
Mhm.
Ellie is kind of stopping and thinking for a minute. She's like, "Wait, is
This is
this?
the river of death.
Yeah, is this the river of death?"
Mhm.
So they look, they kind of stare at it for a second, and they kind of give that Kool-Aid man backpedal.
Yeah.
They're like, "All
Yeah.
right, we're out of here. No more breaking through these bricks." Um, just as they decide that it's time to skedaddle, they actually get approached by a group of cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Where of course this is Maria and her squad. They're out, I guess, maybe just scouting out, making sure there's no infected, making sure there are no raiders anywhere near their territories. Who knows?
Right.
I'm sure. Because actually in The Last of Us 2, we actually do see that they do have like scout regiments where they do
Scout
go
parties.
out and make sure that they are safe. So makes sense.
And they did kind of intertwine Last of Us 2 and Last of Us 1 here, with them actually going into the city, but we'll get to that in just a minute.
Oh
I
yeah.
just want to say, we're not really supposed to be meeting Marlene here yet. we're kind of skipping ahead a little bit
Yeah.
when it comes to where we're at, where we're supposed to be at in the game versus in the show.
Yeah, and
But
it's
they tie
weird.
it in so really well.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I would like to kind of expand on that as well, because you're right. Because in the game, I want to say he actually goes up to the gate of Jackson.
right.
Jackson is closed off, and Tommy is at the gate and realizes that it's his brother, and they let him in. Opposed to here, Maria finds him outside. And then the other thing is, like, while they're there, which we'll kind of talk more about it because they do talk about, oh, we've got electricity. Joel is actually there for the part of the journey where Tommy and company actually get the dam up and running. They
Right.
meet Marlene. I mean, not Marlene. They meet Maria, but they don't really get the full on tour of Jackson and what Jackson has to offer. They are assigned a home, similar to as they are here, and given some horses. They kind of have their moments, and the game progresses in its own direction.
Right.
So yeah, definitely like it's kind of weird. But
It
again,
is.
I have to kind of tip my hat because they somehow again they're making changes to keep it fresh while also honoring the material, and like as much changes because at this point the the game and the show are wildly different but
Yeah.
also very similar.
Very
And
similar.
I
Yeah.
think that comes from changing pieces of the world, but also while they're changing pieces of the world, they're not necessarily changing the journey that Joel and Ellie are going on. So,
Right. Right.
yeah, so cool stuff there. But as we meet Maria and the gang, Joel and Ellie are approached by a dog that is trained to sniff out cordyceps fungus. Joel, of
Yeah.
course, is fine. He's like, see, I'm good, no worries. And
Right.
then the guy looks at him and is like, yeah, whatever. All right, now let's do the girl. And Joel starts to have another panic attack.
Yep.
Um,
Immediately.
yeah, exactly. Immediately. He's looking like Mr. Krabs in the meme. He's just like, you know what I'm saying? It was wild. But as that panic attack heightens, it's broken by the sound of Ellie's laughter. The dog actually loves Ellie. Which is kind of interesting because we learned something new. Because back all the way in episode 1, I forget what the dog's name is, but the dog was able to sniff out that grandma. There was something wrong with grandma, and then he even left. Like he ran when Sarah tried to bring the dog back in the house. The dog ran and didn't come back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does seem like, as far as like the infection goes, he can only tell that you're infected, I guess maybe if you're fully infected or close to being fully infected. I don't know. But just an interesting tidbit.
Yeah. I would love for them to expand
Yeah,
on
that would
that
be
a
cool.
little bit more, just to see like if there like once we get her to the doctors and all that stuff. I would like to see like the doctors explain, why no one noticed that there were like she was infected or whatever. Like they could only tell if this, that, or the third. I would just like an explanation on that, because that was interesting, and I mean it was heart wrenching because of what was happening with Joel. It just, I don't know, it just didn't give a lot of explanation.
Yeah.
Based on that first episode.
Yeah, I would. Now one thing, and I mean, obviously, this is us, hopping into rabbit holes, and I'm sure,
Right.
I'm sure if we tried hard enough, we could find plot holes. Like, for instance, maybe Joel will not have another panic attack for the duration of the show. Who knows? But you are right, and I think that it would be interesting because I know a lot of times with most forms of media, especially anything that's any form of fantasy, like
Mhm.
you know, and this is a form of fantasy, um, but a lot of times, you know, you get the creators that make like a Bible for
Yeah.
their piece of fiction, and I'm curious to see like what that Bible entails when it comes to dogs. Like, is this a thing that we threw in just for the episode that kind of
Right.
works, but that it doesn't work? Like, did you guys think this out? I mean, and if you didn't, it's fine. I mean, how many times a day do we look at something and just go, screw it, it'll work, you know? So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
these people are just human after all.
Right.
Don't put the blame on them. Anyway, so Joel and Ellie they arrive to Jackson. They're inside now after, of course, Maria asks Joel, "What's your name?" He says Joel. She's like, "Oh, okay, I know exactly who you are." She
Right.
brings him into the town. And at this point, Tom and Joel meet each other again for the first time, and who knows how long.
Good old Tommy.
Which is kind of different here. Like in the game, like Joel and Tommy were definitely like happy to see each other, but there wasn't like that full on embrace that we got in the show. Like
Right.
you can
Right.
tell that
There was
despite
a little bit of apprehension there
yeah,
on Tommy's part and Joel's part.
yeah, absolutely. Versus here, it's just like
Yeah.
brother, you know, and
Yeah.
granted, we kind of get into some of the apprehension like later on in the episode.
Right.
But one thing that I did find interesting here is like as brothers embrace, Ellie's kind of unsure about this, and it
Mhm.
seems to me like she's a little standoffish towards the fact that Joel, like obviously she had a connection with Tess, and before Tess went away,
Right.
Tess was starting to like exude like motherly tendencies.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but here, you know, she's just kind of like, who is this guy that's taking up all my Joel? And it shows because she's kind of like standoffish and is
Yeah.
really rude to them as they, you know, move forward in that restaurant.
Yeah.
Now,
Up until Joel doesn't mind his manners.
yeah, yeah, which is funny
Yeah.
because that's another moment where we kind of got that cold Joel, like just like when he's looking at Sam and Henry and he's like, everything's gonna be fine. And she's like, oh, it's just his asshole voice. Like, Joel, be nicer.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and we get that guy here again. But also another thing that we get while, you know, Ellie is being very standoffish and she's like, you can tell that she's used to being in a dog eat dog kind of situation because she stands out. But there's a girl standing across the cafeteria from her who kind of looks like Dina. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did catch that. I did. I wondered if you was gonna bring that up. Actually,
Yeah.
um,
So we don't have to get into who Dina
I was gonna
is.
say I don't know much about her, but
Right.
yeah, I'm only a couple hours into the last.
Yeah. But some cool stuff and funny enough, the restaurant that they're eating in at that time, which is also the same place that they have the movie theater in later on, that place is almost a mirrored image of the place that um that the dance scene at the beginning of The Last of Us 2 was in. Um so yeah, but again, we don't have to say who's involved in those scenes and how that plays out
Yeah.
because we're gonna look, spoiler alert, we're gonna come to a crossroad in this show, okay? And things are gonna get crazy. Okay. That's all we're gonna say. But yeah, I did think that was interesting. Another Easter egg is we actually get Ellie who meets Shimmer.
Right.
Which is another cool thing because in the games, Shimmer is actually Ellie's horse.
Right.
So she meets Shimmer here as she's just arriving to Jackson, and Shimmer is just a little pony, just a cute little pony mining. I think Shimmer's a boy, I think. But you know, just being a cute little pony doing pony things with his horse and pony friends. Nothing to see here. Just an Easter egg if you know better. But at this point that she's embracing the horses and kind of having some small talk with Maria, this is where Joel and Tommy, they're like, hey, we're gonna break off, we're gonna kind of catch up, see what's going on. My boy Tommy takes Joel to a full service bar. They've got real alcohol here. This is not that weird homebrewed stuff and moonshine that my guy that my boy Bill and Frank were drinking. Like, this is like real Hennessy on the rocks. You know, like he brings them.
They were lit.
Yeah, they was in there. They had a couple drinks. And interesting thing here is when Tommy and Joel have this conversation and start getting caught up, the first thing Joel does is he lies about where Tess is. He's like, yeah, Tess is fine.
She's all right.
Yeah, and of course, I would imagine the reason why is because he doesn't want to tell the truth about Ellie, how Ellie's immune, and pretty much just pawns off to say, hey, you know, I'm doing this for a payday. This is Big Wig Firefly's daughter, and I'm just trying to deliver her to get this payday, which is partially true, but in reality, the payday was to get the car so that he could come and make sure Tommy was all right. Which at this point, obviously, we know Tommy's okay, because when he meets Tommy again and they hug, he's like, dude, I was coming to save you. But clearly Tommy doesn't need saving. He's in better condition than Joel is. Yeah.
Extremely better.
Yeah.
Healthier.
Exactly. So because Tommy is looking at Joel and he knows, and they have that discussion about all the things that they had to do to get by and to survive to the point that they're at, he's just like, yo, like it seems like you're on the same stuff that we were on back then, man, and I can't play these games with you. No, I'm not going to go deliver your cargo to get you a payday. I've got a baby on the way, and it's not worth it. I'm sorry. That doesn't go well. Joel storms out and starts to have another panic attack in what looks to be like a town square kind of area. But that panic attack is interrupted by Joel seeing a woman in the distance that looks like Sarah from behind, someone that Sarah could have grown up to be. And
little baby, and was that like a parade or some sort of like festival?
I don't know what it was,
attending?
but that's what I said. It's like some type of town hall or something. They're all just like hanging out there in the courtyard, and initially Joel, like, yes, he's shocked and he's stunned, but he initially approaches her. And then when the little girl that walks up to him looking like Joel's pretend granddaughter, at that point he kind of realizes, well, okay, I'm kind of fantasizing here. This is not my daughter. But then he also, I want to say at this portion, if I remember right, is where he also kind of has a daydream about, oh, that's what they were doing. They were dressing the Christmas tree in the center of the town. Is what they were all gathered for. So in this moment that he sees Sarah and pretend granddaughter, he also kind of, you know, imagines like, man, what life have been like. What if I could put a Christmas tree together? We see his watch is fixed. He's he's living the dream until he's not anymore. So poor Joel. You know, he can't even have a good daydream without being interrupted. But we go back to Ellie. Ellie is hanging out with Maria, kind of making the best of the situation at the time. She's getting comfortable. She's taking another hot shower. That's 2 hot showers that our girl Ellie has been able to take in the world of The Last of Us, which is 2 hot showers. 2 hot showers more than she was able to take in the game, to our knowledge. So shout out to hot showers. We take them for granted.
True.
But with that, she's kind of getting dressed, and we kind of get a glimpse of Maria's motherly instinct as she leaves her a menstrual cup, which is a callback to, actually, funny enough, episode 3, where at the gas station where Joel's getting his stuff, she finds a box of tampons that she's super excited about.
Right.
So now she doesn't have to worry about that. She's got this menstrual cup and she can reuse it and not have to worry about
Mhm.
making a mess, which was
Mhm.
nice of Maria.
Right.
Um, whether or not that wins Ellie over or not, we don't know. But what we do know is Ellie does leave from where I think where no, she either leaves from where they are or they get preparations to leave from where they are because she's invited to the movies. But before doing so,
Yeah.
she does notice a tribute on the mantle of Tommy and Maria's house to a Kevin and Sarah. Um
Oh yeah, I did see that. I
yeah.
did see that.
So, she, looks at Maria. She's like, "Hey, I'm sorry for your kids." And she's like, "Well, I
Right.
only had one kid," which is crazy. If you looked at the times, it indicated that Maria's baby was like 3 or some
Uh-huh.
craziness. And it was
Yeah.
a couple days after
Very young.
Outbreak Day. So
Yeah.
I would imagine having a young child like that would be extremely difficult in that situation because they don't know what's going on. They don't
Right.
understand. So all they see is scary shit happening. They cry, they get
Mhm.
hurt, they trip, they stumble,
Mhm.
whatever it is. You can't go back.
For
You
her
know,
to get lost.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like
That would
anything
be
can happen.
scary.
Remember what happened to what was the little girl's name in the Walking Dead? What was that
Oh,
little
I
girl's
don't
name?
remember. I didn't
It
watch
was like
Walking Dead.
June. Was it June? Something, something. I don't know.
Maybe.
Something. But yeah, yeah.
We'll find it in edit.
Right, yeah. I probably won't even care about it. Yeah, because that show went on for too long and it didn't have a decisive ending and people lost interest in it.
Bruh.
It's probably I
Bruh.
think it's still running technically, but it's in its last season. But
It's got like spin-offs and stuff
yeah,
now.
which I think that the Fear of the Walking Dead was a interesting premise. Is not let's wake up once the world is ended, but let's see what the journey during the end of the world is like. Which I think is a far
Right.
more interesting premise than than the Walking Dead. But
Right.
we didn't actually get them to execute it properly, and shit got really convoluted there too. So yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. Those guys are crazy. Um,
The timeline is nuts.
nuts is an
The
understatement.
people that the fact that people were able to stay like alive as long as they did in that show. It's nuts.
Right, right, crazy stuff.
It would never happen in The Walking Dead or in The Last of Us. In The Last of Us, those people they would either be quadriceps or dead.
Yep, it'd be wild. But with that,
Eat floaters.
we get oh, that's what we get. We get Maria. She's sitting down. She offers to cut Ellie's hair. Ellie's got some
Yep.
split ends. She's like, "Girl, let me do your hair. It's cool."
Knock that shit out.
Which I thought was dope because we get the moment. It's like, oh, okay, we finally get a prominent black woman outside of Marlene. Marlene's a badass in her own right, but
Straight
we
up.
get a prominent black woman doing hair, and Ellie's like, oh, like, were you a hairdresser before everything went to shit? She was like, nah, bro, I was a lawyer.
Yeah,
I just
no,
like
I
doing
was a
hair in my spare
lawyer.
time. So shout out to the world of The Last of Us, giving a strong image to our black women.
I
You gotta
love
love it.
how she stated that she was a like a district attorney and then kind of ends up becoming the sheriff or you know authority figure of Jackson.
Yeah,
Like she's the one to run by all of the disputes and what plans we need to make for the town and how we need to structure the town. Like all that runs through Maria, and I think that shit
yeah.
is like
Now,
spot on.
yeah. Well, she did make it clear. She said that she was not the sole proprietor of Jackson, but she said, "Yeah, I'm on the board." So
She's on the council.
yeah,
Yeah,
the council.
yeah,
There we go.
exactly.
She's like, so anything that comes, like, yeah, we vote, and I'm a part of that. So she is very, very prominent within the community
I
of
would say
Jackson.
influential for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. But one thing that happens during the scene where Maria is offering to cut Ellie's hair, which Ellie does accept the offer to get rid of those split ends,
Hmm.
is she starts to imply that Ellie might not know who Joel is.
Hmm.
Um, which is kind of interesting because Ellie shuts it down right away. She's like, "No, I know exactly who he is. Yes, he has violent
Right.
tendencies." She's like, "Well, does he kill people?" And she's honest. She says, "Yes, he kills people, but
Right.
You know, these days he's not killing innocent people. You know,
Right.
which is kind of true. Like, you know, opposed to in the game where you're running all over the place. You're Rambo, you're snapping necks, you're Solid Snakes sneaking behind and throwing Molotov
Facts.
cocktails at people and shit. Like here in
Facts.
the game, they really pair. I mean, in the show rather, they really pared it down a bit.
I
Which
mean, because
is
he could have killed that couple.
yeah, he absolutely could have killed them. And then again, going back to episode 5, when he catches up to the sniper and sneaks up on him, you know, he's like,
He
dude,
asks him.
yeah, he's like, come on, man, like just put
Come
the
on,
gun
man,
down.
please,
We don't have to do
please.
this. And he's not trying to hear it, and he has to get that work, and that's just the way it goes.
It's him or me.
Yeah,
It's been him or me, I think, since he got with Ellie. Since
yeah,
he killed that police officer, he's been on a him or me attitude.
yeah,
And
definitely.
because he could have killed Sam, and he could have turned them in. Like there's a whole lot of things that Joe could have done to save his own skin. But as his character has grown, so has his morals,
Yeah,
so has the way that he views life again. Because again, in the first episode, he was burning baby bodies.
yeah, which is crazy to like when you go back to that. We have Buddy with the clean green Nikes. Like
You know what I'm saying?
where do you get those Nikes in the post apocalyptic world? I don't know if he like raided a Foot Locker or
I want a
something, but
pair. I want a pair.
yeah,
I
you
need
know
to
what I'm
buy a
saying.
pair.
Size
I'm trying
13,
to buy.
bring me a pair.
Straight up. Straight up.
But with that, you know, she confronts Maria. She's like, nah, I know who Joel is exactly. Like, yeah, I get your concerns, but he's not as bad as you think. With that, Ellie is excited to go to the movies. So she goes to the movies. She's sitting there amongst a bunch of kids and feels a little out of place here. And
Just a little.
ends up sneaking off so that she could go see what old Joel and Tommy are up to. At this point, you know, we cut to Joel and Tommy. We don't actually see Ellie anymore for a while. Outside of her kind of like, you know, snooping through the town a bit.
Right.
But at this point, Joel tells Tommy the truth. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
Tess is dead.
From the beginning.
Yeah. Like, yeah, that was the first thing he said. It's like, she's immune. And at first you can tell Tommy's like, oh, hell no. Like he's ready to skate out.
Tommy was ready to tell the council, round up the girl, burn her at a stake. He was ready.
Yeah, he was ready
for that action.
Yeah, and he actually had to say, like, no, this is not a joke. I seen her get bit myself. Right. And that was months ago. And at that moment, you can just see in Tommy's face, again, perfect casting, that at that moment, his jaw drops and he sits down and he's thinking about that baby that's on the way. And he's like, hey, explain from the beginning.
Right.
And
it starts to dawn on him because at first he was reactive.
Yeah,
right.
Which rightfully
reactive.
Which is understanding because he lied to him initially. It's like, no, I'm not gonna go put my life on the risk when I have a baby on the way just so you can get a freaking payday. Like, get out of here. But now, will I put my life on the line to deliver this girl who could cure the world so that my baby can live a normal life away from infected? Completely different set of circumstances. So you can see why things have flipped for him. But what's interesting here is outside of Joel kind of having like some panic attacks, this outside of episode 1, this is the first time that we actually really see Joel fully break down emotionally. And he admits he's just like, I can't fail her. Like, I failed once, I cannot fail her. All I can see is me letting her down, me dropping the ball, me fumbling. Like, I cannot do this. Please, Tommy, do this, if not for me, but for the fact that you have a baby on the way and your baby does not have to live like this.
Right. Joel is experiencing a true moment of weakness in his character.
Yeah.
And Pedro Pascal does an awesome job of portraying. Thank you for portraying that.
Right.
And not only portraying that, but then taking it to a deeper level. Because I don't think we ever see Joel cry in The Last of Us.
Yeah,
But we
but
see
I
Pedro
yeah,
cry here, and it feels like it's in character.
yeah,
It's
the
not
only time we
something
see it
that's
happen was when Sarah dies.
right,
Yeah,
right. But we see him cry here, in this moment of weakness, and it adds an additional layer to his character to the point where, you kind of feel it even more so, Pedro, that Joe can't do this. But it's not that he can't do this, it's that he can't do this without Ellie. And that's what he is not realizing within himself. And that's why I think that with Pedro actually making that scene as emotional as he did, it brings even more light to Joel's insecurity.
yeah, definitely.
As a person, as a protector, as a father, like all these things are finally hitting the forefront of Joel's psyche, and he's realizing this isn't for me. This is a mission that needs to be handled by somebody else. But not realizing that he can do this with Ellie, and Ellie's the only person that he can do this
Yeah,
with.
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, and all
so
that's
dynamic.
all that's true, and you can see it right on Front Street because he's an emotional wreck in the scene.
Yeah.
Um, so behind the scenes, what we don't see, Ellie leaves back to go to the assigned home that they have at Jackson. She's sitting there reading some little girl's diary, which is a moment that's ripped right out of the game. But the difference is in the game, once Ellie walks in on this conversation, she steals a horse, and I think the horse's name is Napoleon, if I remember right. I might be wrong.
She does steal that horse. You have to
But
go and find her.
right, and they go off and find her. There's like an abandoned cottage where they find her, and at that point, that's where you find her up in the room reading the book or the diary. Yep. Here, it's the assigned home that they have on the Jackson settlement where she's reading the book. And again, these lines are almost identical to what we get in the game. She's like, "Hey, this is what they were worried about back then. Like, what skirt match, boys? Gosh, this is so trivial." And you know, it doesn't take long before she addresses him and is like, "So you're leaving me with Tommy? Like, what's your point of even being here?" Man, shout out to Bella Ramsey and shout out to Pedro Pascal. Because this is one of the most iconic and pivotal moments in the game that personally, like when I heard about the show, this is like one of those moments where I'm like, they've got to nail it. Like, these are the moments that could take the fan base to be like, they really screwed it up. Because there's like the Frank and Bill shit, some of the changes to Tess and some of the changes from Marlene and how they handle Robert in episode 1. Like, yes, those things can change, but you cannot change the journey and the connection in which Joel and Ellie have. If that connection is changed a little bit to where maybe it's brother and sister instead of father and daughter, if you change it to where they meet and they never get along or they hit it off right from the beginning, it loses some of that power that makes the story so special. And we get that moment where, you know, she's like, you know, everyone in my life has left me except for you. Fun fact, you know, just like in the game, in the show, Bella Ramsey pushes Pedro Pascal during this scene. The fun fact here is when they were shooting this moment, because they do performance capture for the game, when they did this scene, they said that they shot it a multitude of times, and when they were shooting it, I don't know, Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie, both in performance capture and in voice, I don't know if it was frustration from doing the scene multiple times and not getting it or what, but in this scene, out of nowhere, she pushes him when she delivers the line, except for fucking you. And that was improv, and at the moment, Troy Baker, who plays Joel, didn't know what to expect. He just kind of goes with it, and it adds to the scene and makes it more believable. And it was cool to see that a moment of improv in the game was, one, picked up to be one of the most iconic moments in their relationship, but two, also translates perfectly into the scene in the show, man. Just
Man,
good stuff.
I'm telling you, bro, like this casting was I think iconic. If this show itself doesn't win a bunch of awards, I personally am gonna have to write a
Oh, yeah.
letter. Extremely upset. I can't see him right now as the Mandalorian. I can't see him as other characters. I see Pedro Pascal as Joel right now
That's who he
because
is.
that's the show that I'm watching.
That is who he
He is
is.
such a dynamic actor, and Bella Ramsey is no different. Seeing her in Game of Thrones, she was boss hogging.
Yeah.
Straight boss hogging. And here as being Ellie, it's the same thing. Like I'm happy that they cast these two people to play these actors because the gaming community holds these two characters in such a high pedestal. I think that they're bringing so much justice to these two characters that they deserve every
Right.
award that is available for TV shows at this point.
I'm sure that they're gonna clean up when it's the is it the Emmys? The Emmys, right?
I think so.
Yeah, the
I think so.
Emmys,
Yeah,
the
yeah. Emmys,
Grammys,
Oscars,
Oscars,
maybe. Yeah,
and because the
yeah.
Oscars are movies, the Emmys are TV
Right.
shows,
Okay.
Tonys are, I think, like plays, and then of course, Grammys is music. So yeah,
Okay.
so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. So
We'll see.
yeah. I mean, this Game of Thrones, like HBO is really, really
Yeah,
up,
and
but
then they've
this
got
show is
Euphoria as
killing.
well, so they're going crazy.
Right.
They're going
Right.
crazy. But with that, we, after they get in their argument, where things change here, Joel storms out, he slams the door, and we're left to kind of see where they are in their feelings. Where in the game, we kind of get interrupted by this moment by a pack of raiders in the area that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
But regardless, the next morning comes around. Tommy comes up to pick up Ellie as they are ready to embark on their journey. But as they get to the barn house to ready up their horses, Joel's there. He's ready to go, and he actually gives Ellie a choice. Before he can even finish, Ellie chooses Joel.
Thrust the bag in his chest.
Right. Now, during these, and I guess one thing, and we've seen this moment so many times playing the game, now seeing the show, but one of the moments that we did miss out on, like during that conversation, the argument that Joel and Ellie had with each other about Tommy taking her to the Fireflies, and she openly said, which we kind of alluded to earlier in the episode, like, yeah, it's scary out there, but I'm not as scared when I'm with you.
Right.
Yeah, so it just kind of goes back to how these characters are finding the strength to move on and live on within each other. But anyway, Joel and Ellie, they leave together. They leave on the horse Napoleon again. I'm gonna stick to that name, though I might be wrong. So whatever.
Yeah, because Shimmer's just too young.
Yeah, because Shimmer's too young.
It makes sense that it would be Napoleon.
Yeah. Shout out to Shimmer, though. We love you, Shimmer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so as they are going out to find the Fireflies on this, I think they said it was like a 6 to 7 day trek to get here to the University of Utah. I want to say it is. Yep. And once they take a break, we get a moment of where earlier in the show Joel was he was asked to teach her how to hunt with the rifle. Now he's actually showing her how to use the rifle. She's not getting it. Joel is. He shows us exactly how much of a dog he is, which now we know why last episode why he was popping off dudes from long range with that rifle. Like he wasn't missing. So what's interesting here is where before Joel was still kind of reluctant. At this point, he's completely on. He's graduated from Daddy Joe to Papa Joe. Because not only is he trying to teach her how to use this rifle, we see them traversing the terrain, and he's teaching her about his life, what he did before the pandemic broke out. You know how football works. Like there's a lot of conversation that they're having here, which is cool because you know this is a stark contrast to what I think it was episode 4, where he looks at her and he's like, "You're cargo."
Yeah.
Now look at us. Started from the bottom. Now
he's
we
telling
here.
her he wanted to be a singer when he grew up, and all that good stuff.
Right? Yeah, we did get that.
She asked him to sing. He didn't sing this time.
Right. But we did get the scene where she tries to whistle.
Yeah.
Which in the game is a lot earlier on. But it's still cool that we got that callback of her like, how do you whistle? Like, how do we get this done?
He said you got that talent.
Right. Which was, you know, another snarky dad moment. You know, he's definitely assuming the position at this point. But these guys, they arrive to the university. At the university, we are confronted by a huge swarm of monkeys. Not really a huge swarm. There's like 5 or 6 of them. Which again is something that draws a parallel to the game. The monkeys are there. You snoop through, just like in the show, in the game, you're snooping through the university. You're looking around. In the game, you do run into a couple infected in there, which I believe are all fireflies. But here in the show, it's completely empty. It's abandoned. They're finding notes left behind from the fireflies. They hear some crash up above them. They go to explore it. What do we find? But some monkeys up there monkeying around. You know, all that monkey business. Crazy.
Oh, monkey business.
Right. Well, speaking of monkey business, haven't we been plagued with a lot of monkey business as of lately? It's crazy out here, man. It's crazy. Yeah. But it is what it is. Nonetheless, as they kind of go, you know, scrummaging through more of the firefly stuff, they see that there are raiders approaching from a window. So this is more or less where our episode starts to end. Joel and Ellie sneak out the back. They get back to our good old horsey buddy Napoleon out here, which I swear is his name. I'm gonna Google it. Before we get to rating the episode, I'm gonna Google it. In a scuffle, so what happens is they end up in a scuffle where Joel is fighting this guy who tries to crack him with a baseball bat. Yeah. Which is cool because Joel uses one of his signature video game moves. He uses the choke out, snaps dude's neck, makes quick work of him, but not before he actually gets stabbed in the stomach, which Ellie points to. Excuse me. And of course, thank you. Which at this point, Ellie's freaking out. He pulls out this large shard of baseball bat and starts to bleed out. Ellie manages to help him get on the horse. They're riding out. They manage to escape from the raiders. Down the way, across the railroad tracks and such, Joel collapses, falls off the horse. And our girl Ellie is, at this point, forced to deal with her largest fear, which she confirmed last episode when she was talking to Sam. Her biggest fear is to be left alone. And here it is. Joel's dead. Oh my God. He got stabbed in the stomach. Where do we go from here? So, we know what happens here next. We are going to rate the episode on the official Blerd Lines Media rating scale. But before getting there, I want to see what the name of that horse was.
Let's do it. Google that thing. Too bad we didn't get the bloater scene.
I mean, we got the bloater. We got one bloater.
We got one bloater, but we could have got the bloater at the university too.
Man, I'm way off. So I just Googled it. The horse's name was not Napoleon. It was Callus.
Oh, Callus. Okay.
There we go. So I'm all the way off. It's Callus. Cool. But yeah, so with that, you know what it's time for. At the end
Yeah.
of the summary of each episode, we like to go ahead and refer over to the official Blerd Lines Media ranking scale to grade each episode of The Last of Us. And with that being said, we've got 10 ratings. We've got 10, which is a masterpiece, which of course a masterpiece can still have its issues so long as it is defining the way that a set form of media should be moving forward. There's 9 amazing, 8 great, 7 good, 6 okay, 5 mid, 4 mediocre, 3 turtleneck. Again, explanation behind turtleneck is somebody out there is keeping turtlenecks in business. There are not a lot of people on this planet that like turtlenecks, but somehow they have always been a part of fashion in one way or another. So someone's keeping them in. Someone kind of likes them. They're number 3. 2, we marginalize that weird group of turtleneck lovers to 2. It's terrible. It's worse than the turtleneck. No one should like it, but maybe someone does. And then we have 1, Superman 64 bad, which is so bad that no one should fundamentally enjoy it. It's not even so bad that it's good. It's just simply broken and unenjoyable.
Unenjoyable. Completely.
Yes. So, with that being said, episode 6 of The Last of Us. What are you going to rate this episode?
I am going to give it a good.
You're going to give it a good. You're going to give it a 7 out of 10. That's fair. Any reasons why we're going for a 7 out of 10?
I think it was great, man. I just feel like they skipped over a lot of things in the game as far as action goes. We just haven't seen a lot of zombies in the show at all. I think that the last episode was probably the most zombies we've seen.
Yeah.
Since maybe episode 1 or 2. So I would just like to see more zombies in the show. But I do love the emotional output. I do enjoy the character building and how we're progressing. It is very akin to the game. I very am much enjoying all of the things that I spoke about with the actors and their dynamic. And how they're bringing these characters to life on this television screen. I want more zombies, bro.
Yeah, definitely. I get that. I can see that. For me, I'm gonna give the episode a 8, which on our scale shows it to be a great episode. And a lot of that as well is because you do lose some things in translation of the adaptation, and I think that this episode focusing on the connection of Joel and Ellie did make things great. But at the same time, you do kind of miss some of the action and some of the tension.
Right.
Now I get that last episode was definitely a nail biter, and you know, you're stressed. Even as a gamer, you know how the game is supposed to play out, and you're still stressed, and you're hoping that Sam does somehow pull through with the magic touch of Ellie's god hand.
Right.
It doesn't work. But something here is like, even if, because in this section of the game, there's a couple portions of action. You got clickers in the university.
Mm-hmm.
You've got, of course, the raiders at the university, which we do get. And you also get an attempted raider takeover of Jackson, which you have to kind of fight off. I think maybe extending this episode by about 10 minutes to kind of show that. I mean, I guess we kind of got that in the confrontation between Jackson, the Jackson scout regime, and Joel and Ellie, that they are not playing games. But it also would have been cool to kind of see them actually fend off some people. Like, we got to see Bill do it. Like, I'd like to see kind of what Jackson has to offer and how they would shut down that attempted raid. But still, all in all, great episode. I enjoyed it. And then, of course, lastly here, we get into our preview of next episode, which next episode we are getting right into the Left Behind territory of the story, which honestly I'm excited about, because The Last of Us Left Behind is like the part of the game that I've played the least of, just because it was always like its own separate save, and you've got to kind of go out of the way to play it a little bit.
Even on the remastered version, I think, right?
Yeah, even on the remaster, I would have liked them to build it into the story, but I also get why they didn't.
Right.
As there are some mechanics in that portion of the game that are very different from the initial game itself.
Right.
But with that being said, how do you think this next episode is going to go? Will they or won't they stay loyal to the source material? And if they won't, how far do you think they're going here?
I'm gonna have to play the part Left Behind again, but I think if I remember correctly, the way that they showed everything in the trailer, right? I think that they're going to slightly deviate from the source material, just slightly. I don't know where exactly, but I just feel like there's going to be a small deviation, but it's going to lead up, of course, to the same ending. There may be more conversation, and we did get to see like Ellie and too, so there's going to be more of that, I think. I think that's kind of like the deviation that I'm
Yeah,
like pointing out.
yeah, and I agree. I do see where I believe the deviation is coming from.
Hmm.
Because the DLC was kind of split in two parts. One of it was you venturing through a current day mall, trying to find
Hmm.
supplies to survive, because at this point Ellie is all on her own.
Right.
But also the mall striking a resemblance to the mall that she ventured through with Riley, which, you know, puts you in a lot of scenarios where you're having flashbacks. And
Hmm.
what I think is, I think that the way that this will pan out is, I think it's going to stay very loyal to the DLC. I think where the
Oh yeah.
difference is going to come from is it looks to me like, I don't know if you've ever read the comic book or the graphic novel, but it actually fills in the story of where Ellie was and what Ellie was doing before she met Joel and before she
Hmm.
met Marlene. Um,
Okay.
I think that what they're gonna do is they're gonna fill in some of those blanks with that comic book. I wish I remember the name of it. Um,
That'd be nice.
and we'll kind of see where Ellie was, which was kind of a student at the Fedric
Yeah.
camp and breaking the rules to hang out with Riley, leading
Hmm.
up to the events of how, you know, Ellie and Riley play out, which we'll of course have to wait till this Sunday to check out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome. Um, I'm pre-rating it right now because we're gonna get some zombie action. So
oh yeah,
I'm gonna pre-rate it, and just in my own thing, I'm gonna pre-rate it a 9.
you pre-rated it a 9.
Pre-rating
Demi
it a
God
9.
Sean said he will not be here for this next episode, episode 7, but he wants to get ahead of the 8 ball. He is rating the episode now. That's fine. I think it's going to be a good one as well. But of course, again, we'll have to wait for another few days to get that done.
Yeah.
But at this time, we'll go ahead and wrap up. So, Mr. Demi God Sean, where can people find you?
Hey man, you can find me on twitch.tv, Demigod Sean. You can also find me on TikTok and IG.
Yeah,
Demigod Sean. Hit me up.
a little bit everywhere. So if you like Demi God Sean, whether it's for his hair that looks like mine, believe it or not, I have my locks first. Don't believe anything he says. He
What?
if you like him for the hair that looks like mine, if you like him
Uh,
because he's a cool dude, he's kind of chill, he's very insightful. Go check him out. He is a Destiny streamer primarily, but he gets into a little bit of everything. And as the Lightfall is getting ready to drop on the 28th, we'll see a lot more
hey,
Sean on twitch.tv/Demigod Sean, as well as on youtube.com/at Blerd Lines Media. So yeah,
yeah.
with that being said, guys, I appreciate you guys coming through again. It's been a
Check
great
us out.
episode, having some fun. Make sure you go check out the content. We've got plenty more for you there. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, all that good stuff. And you guys have a great day. We're going to go do sick people stuff because my nose is super, super backed up right now. Good night,
Oh, so
guys.
you don't have to pee this time. You gotta blow your nose.
I might pee after I blow my nose, but hey,
There you go.
that's me living my life. So yeah.